Welcome to The Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled you're tuning in today. As a guy who loves to break down these big, complex concepts into clear, everyday takeaways, man, I gotta tell you, today's source material is truly something special. We're unpacking a beautifully written collection of reflections titled A Matter of Faith. And right out of the gate, I want you to just settle in, take a breath, and get ready for a bit of a journey. The author is issuing a profound invitation here. It's not some loud call to rebellion, but an invitation to drop the shackles, to drop those inherited chains that we so often think are keeping us safe, but honestly, they're actually just keeping us incredibly small. The idea is that by unfolding our minds, we can find a way to truly, fully live. So, I want to pose this question directly to you, right at the top of our explainer. What actually happens when you drop the weight of your inherited chains? It's a heavy question, isn't it? Well, the source material argues that when you finally let go of all that baggage, you make room. You let the light of reason in, and more importantly, you allow the heart of real, lived faith to finally bloom. But before we get into the incredible stories that illustrate this, we kind of need to make sure we're speaking the same language. Okay, so let's set the foundational stage here. The author draws a really sharp and honestly very necessary distinction. On one side, we've got religion. This is described as the organized communal framework. It's the doctrines, the rituals, the massive institutions built around shared beliefs. But on the other side, we have faith. And faith is described as a deep, deeply personal trust or belief that often exists completely without any empirical or physical proof. The source makes a super compelling argument. Faith is the foundational bedrock. It's the raw material that takes the abstract, sometimes rigid doctrines of religion and transforms them into a lived, breathing, personal experience. And to really help us understand how this bedrock of faith operates in the real world, the author shares 3 distinct parables. Let's get into them. Part 1. The Dropped Chalk. Okay, picture this. The source recounts the story of a college philosophy professor. And this wasn't just any professor. He was a deeply committed, fiercely intellectual atheist. His primary goal, seemingly, was to completely dismantle the idea of God for his students. He taught this class for 20 long years, and for 20 years, his logic was so impeccable, his whole vibe so intimidating, that literally no one ever had the courage to go toe-to-toe with him. Every single year, he'd shout to his 300 students, "If there's anyone here who still believes in God, stand up." Crickets. Every year, the room remained seated. Then, he'd hold up a simple piece of chalk and challenge them, saying that if God existed, he could easily stop this chalk from hitting the ground and breaking. Every year, he dropped it onto the hard tile floor. Every year, it shattered into 100 pieces. Until one year, a new student, a firm believer, who had literally prayed for courage, finally stood up. The professor was completely shocked and yelled out, "You fool! If God existed, he would keep this piece of chalk from breaking." And this is where the story hits its climax. The angry professor goes to drop the chalk to the tile floor exactly as he had done for 2 decades. But this time, the author describes this absolutely unbelievable sequence of events. The chalk slips out of his fingers, it bounces off his shirt cuff, it drops onto the pleat of his pants, slides all the way down his leg, and bounces off his shoe. And when it finally hits the ground, it simply rolls away, completely unbroken. The professor's jaw literally dropped. He stared at the young man, utterly speechless, and actually ran right out of the lecture hall. Now, the author challenges us to interpret that moment. Most people might just sigh in disbelief, right? We're so quick to chalk it up, no pun intended, to mere coincidence, a crazy stroke of luck, or just a bizarre trick of physics. But the author asks us to pause and consider the alternative. Could it be divine action responding to our deepest faith? I mean, why did it happen at that exact moment, to that specific boy who had the guts to stand up? Are the events in our lives merely random luck, or could they actually be divine actions responding to our belief? The author leaves us with this powerful thought. If you believe, believe with all your faith. Now, let's see how this builds into our next story, which takes a much, much gentler tone. Part 2. Lunch with God. So we're shifting gears from the tense, high-stakes environment of a college lecture hall to a quiet, sunny afternoon in a local park. The author tells the story of a little boy who just woke up one day and decided he wanted to meet God. So what does a little boy do? He packs a suitcase with 2 sets of clothes, grabs some packets of cakes, and sets off on his grand adventure. After walking a long way, he gets tired, sits on a park bench, and gets ready to eat a piece of cake. But then he notices an old woman sitting nearby. She looks incredibly sad, and she looks hungry. So the boy executes this simple yet profoundly beautiful 3-step process. Step 1, he offers her a piece of cake. She accepts it gratefully with this wide, beautiful smile. Step 2,
He's so delighted by her smile that he just offers her another piece, and they sit there all afternoon, just eating cake and smiling at each other in total silence. They never say a single word. Step 3, as it starts getting dark, the boy gets up to leave, but before he goes, he runs back and gives her a massive hug. She kisses him, wearing her absolute prettiest smile yet.
But the real kicker is what happens when they both go home. The author reveals these gorgeous dual perspectives. The boy gets home to his mother, practically glowing with joy. When she asks him why he's so happy, he says, "I had lunch with God, and you know what? She's got the most beautiful smile I've ever seen." Meanwhile, across town, the old woman returns to her home, just radiating peace. When her stunned son asks what happened to make her so happy, she says, "I ate cakes in the park with God. You know, he's much younger than I expected." The source distills the story into such an incredibly practical, universally applicable takeaway. Honestly, how often do we completely underestimate the power of just small acts of caring? A touch, a smile, a kind word, a listening ear, an honest compliment. The author reminds us that, hey, nobody actually knows what God looks like, but these tiniest acts of caring have the immense potential to completely turn someone's life around. Never, ever underestimate the power of your own simple kindness. It's a real game changer. Part 3, The Shaggy Dog Guru. All right, let's step into our third and final narrative from the text. This one has a truly wondrous, almost triumphant energy to it. I want to anchor the sheer physical scale of what we're talking about here. 21. That is the number of kilometers in the Parikama of Govardhan, a grueling sacred walk around a holy mountain in India. And the author's group, about 75 people, started this massive trek at 10:30 at night, walking straight into the dark. Almost immediately upon starting, an unexpected companion shows up. A healthy but very shaggy black street dog just starts walking right beside the author and his daughter. Now, naturally, the group was a bit wary of a stray dog in the pitch black. The author even admits he tried to shoo the dog away 3 or 4 times. But the dog? He wasn't having it. He didn't budge. He just seamlessly integrated himself into this group of 75 human pilgrims, refusing to leave their side as they marched into the night. And he stayed with them for 6 whole hours. What makes that number so astounding, as the author points out, is what the dog actually had to endure during that time. As they passed through the territories of other street dogs, their shaggy companion was viciously barked at and attacked by territorial rivals. Yet, he never tucked his tail. He stood brave. Eventually, the whole group of humans actually started protecting him, shooing away the enemy dogs. And strangely enough, despite walking for 6 hours straight, the dog refused to eat any food offered to him by the group. He was entirely, completely focused on the journey. The author takes a step back and reflects on how this mute animal managed to connect with 75 strangers in the dark, acting almost like a guru, teaching them key lessons. First, unflinching faith. The dog instinctively chose this group and never turned back, teaching the pilgrims that they too should have unyielding faith in their own path. Second, seamless integration. The dog was proud but totally unimposing, showing us how we can navigate unknown, scary situations with grace. And third, wordless connection. By the end, even the people who were terrified of dogs ended up feeling this deep, genuine affection for him. Which brings us to the ultimate moral takeaway of the dog's incredible journey. This animal won a place in everyone's hearts in such a short amount of time, without saying a word. The author urges us to learn from him. Leave footprints of love wherever you go. True spiritual energy isn't about grand, sweeping gestures or loud declarations. It's about bringing humility to yourself and leaving a lasting positive impact on the hearts of others, regardless of the language you speak or if you speak at all. Part 4. The Power of Belief. Let's bring all 3 of these amazing parables together now. From the defiant classroom to the quiet park bench to the dark, sacred roads of India. The overarching theme of the source material is elegantly captured right here. People, and yes, even shaggy street dogs, come into our lives in very distinct ways. Some arrive for a specific reason, to teach us a sharp, immediate lesson. Some stay for a season, walking beside us during a specific phase of our journey. And a rare few, they're there for a lifetime. But they all serve a purpose in guiding us and helping us grow. The author delivers this as the core philosophical thesis of the text. And it's a heavy, deeply moving instruction. Accept all of them equally and let them see God in you. It's a challenge to the reader. It's not just about searching the world for signs of the divine or waiting for a piece of chalk to miraculously bounce off a shoe. It's about reflecting that grace, that kindness, and that unshakable faith outwards into your everyday life for literally everyone else to witness. Which brings us right back to where we started today. having explored the difference between rigid religion and deeply personal faith, having seen it in action through a courageous student, a generous little boy, and a fiercely loyal dog. The author leaves us with this one question. Are you ready? Are you ready to finally drop the inherited chains, the doubts, and the rigid expectations, and let real, lived faith bloom in your life? I'll let that thought linger for you to take into the rest of your week. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep exploring.